obscure world of parking. We use it every day, but have we really capitalized on the intricacies of our industry? In this podcast, the Parking Network will go behind the scenes and talk to industry professionals about all things parking, from the horizon of evolving technology and even stories of the old days. We hope to encourage and inspire operators and property managers alike to look at parking through a new lens. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Our Parking Industry Podcast. I am Krista Oline, and I'm here with Lee Thomas, and we have a guest today, Brandon Marquis. He is the Director of Healthcare Operations at the car park, and we are delighted to have him here chatting with us today. So one of the main focuses that we talk about here on this podcast is providing knowledge and resources, and one of the topics that just keeps coming up is customer service. So we are definitely going to dive into that today. You're going to hear a lot about how that is being provided in the healthcare industry, some must do, some must not do's. And so let's get started. So Brandon, thank you for being here today. We are so excited to chat with you. We had the pleasure of hearing you at NPA present as one of the speakers at NPA 2025. And Lee, we were sitting in that presentation and we both kind of looked at each other and we're like, he has to be on our podcast. So here we are. We're making it happen, making dreams come true.
Thanks for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Brandon?
Sure. So as you mentioned, I'm the Director of Healthcare Operations for the car park. We're a full-service parking management firm based out of Boise, but our regional headquarters are in Raleigh, North Carolina. I've been in Raleigh, North Carolina since early 2022. And before that, I was with a security firm out of Chicago, the global security firm, but I was officed out of Chicago. And before that, I was with another parking operation out of Chicago. And before that, a little more security, but the beginning of my career was all luxury customer service. I worked for a large global retailer that focused on experience instead of sales. And that's where I got my start, and that's how I've projected myself into the future.
Would you clarify that term? I've never heard someone speak about luxury customer service. What does that mean? Can you give some examples or non-examples of what that means?
Sure. So when someone thinks about luxury, they usually think of the Rolex watch or the Ferrari or something like that. But really, luxury is just something that is not necessarily expected and you go above and beyond for. So if you walk into a store like Apple, you're going to be bombarded by stuff happening at you. If you walk into a boutique retailer, you're going to be approached by a customer service person, and they're going to ask you how you want to experience the store instead of how the store wants you to experience it. And that is a great way to understand luxury customer service. It's all about you and less about the company.
Okay, so you come with this background in a very customer-centric industry, and then you come into parking.
That's right.
So what do you see is good in the parking customer service world, and what is the parking industry lacking in the customer service?
That is a crazy loaded question. I think so. My experience of the parking world is everyone has a great desire. They have a really strong desire to be there to provide, but oftentimes it feels very transactional. Everything we do is money-based. You park in my parking stall and you give me money for it. You valet with me and you give me money for it. Clearly, we can't get rid of that. We can't get past that, but we can enhance the experience to make it feel less transactional and more of a relationship. There's a number of places out there that I have experienced. So a part of my role is I talk to other customers that are not just healthcare. And they say, because of what you provide, your company provides, we don't want to go to another company because of the relationship we have with your salespeople. I've spoken to a number of our customers who park on our lots, and they specifically choose to park on our lots because of the relationship they have with us, not just the payment experience, but also like, hey, I've got a problem. Hey, I'm going to another city. Can you help me get parking there? And that's really valuable. And it translates to the healthcare world as well, because we have customers who work at XYZ hospital, and then they get promoted and they go work at another hospital, and they call us and they say, hey, you do a great job at this. Can you please come and serve our customers at this other hospital? And it's about that experience, but it doesn't always translate. So your question was what's the downfall? It doesn't always translate because of the speed of the interactions. So if you park on a parking lot, how long do you spend with your parking vendor? Maybe 30 seconds, maybe a minute. If you're valeting, it's maybe a minute, maybe 2 minutes. So you really need to train for quick experiences and quick positive experiences.
Okay, so how do you train your employees to provide a quick service in less than 2 minutes? Like, what do you even tell them to do?
So there's a number of different ways I could take this. As a company, we use Forbes training. So we focus heavily on that. In my experience, have used I don't know if you're familiar with the book. It's called The New Gold Standard. It is about the Four Seasons and how they train.
Okay.
And for me, my personal favorite is, I don't know if you're familiar with the $2 hot dog story, but there was a restaurateur in New York, and he ran a very large, very famous, very posh restaurant, and they focused on experiences. And one day he was walking by a table, and these people were, very excited by their time in New York, and they said, "We're really sad because we never got a $2 hot dog, a dirty water dog, as they call it in New York." And he was just walking by the table, and he said, "Oh, I can really elevate these people's experience." So he ran out the back to a hot dog vendor, picked up a couple of hot dogs, ran back to his kitchen, twisted his chef's arm to actually present them and put them on a plate. And he brought it out to them and said, "Here is the culmination of your New York experience. I brought you a $2 hot dog." And it's just the idea of going above and beyond to unexpectedly wow people. It didn't cost him any money, right? I mean, $2, that's nothing, right? And it really doesn't take very much time to go out of your way to find what I train my team to do. It's find the $2 hot dog. So in every training, every employee I bring on, we talk about the $2 hot dog experience. Every single day, you should try and find a way to go above and beyond for someone that is unexpected for them. Whether it's holding a door extra long, going to get a wheelchair extra long, or sitting with someone after they have a bad day. I mean, working in hospitals, people generally don't go to hospitals for good reasons. They are often having a really bad day and sometimes the worst day of their life. So the most valuable thing we have is time. So sometimes the $2 hot dog is just sitting next to someone and being with them while they digest the information that the medics just gave them, or their husband goes to gets the car or something like that. It could be as simple as time. It could be as simple as, "Sure, I'll take your car to the gas station and get a little extra gas for you." We've done that before. My team is really good at finding those things that really wow them.
That's fascinating. Well, you mentioned this idea of security. How does the security concept of what you do play into the $2 hot dog concept?
So that's a really good question. And it's not, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not intuitive, but in security, particularly the kind of security that I come from, it's like a commercial high-rise security. I'm really good at commercial high-rise security and designing programs for that. So if you work in an office building and there are people out front right there, those are my people. That's who I train. And their job is not to tackle the bad guy. Their job is not to, defuse the bomb. Their job is to observe and report. Their job is to observe. So their situational awareness is critical. So if you walk into your office building and you see the people on their phones, that's not a great customer experience for you. If you see them standing up and looking around and seeing what's going on, that's a fantastic customer experience, because they're going to remember you, they're going to know what you're about, and they're going to know how to keep you safe. So it's the same thing in the parking industry. Our situational awareness is critical. I teach my team, don't say, "Welcome to the hospital." I teach my team not to ask, "Hey, how's your day going?" Because at a hospital, it's usually not a great answer. So it's the situational awareness that's required to understand, how should I be approaching this customer? What's going on? Did this car come in and does it look a little unsafe? Maybe the person's having a really bad day. I have been there when someone drives in and is actively having a heart attack. And so it's the situational awareness that is required of your team, of course, to keep them safe, but also to know how to interact with the customer. And a lot of people, they just don't have that situational awareness because it's never been taught to them. So as part of my training, as part of my onboarding, as part of my constant coaching, it's situational awareness. We're not security, but we are taking care of people who need us to know where they're at.
So I might be asking you to give away a secret ingredient, but if you train your people to not say, "Welcome to the hospital," and to not say, "How's your day?" what do you teach them to say? Like, what is the most empathetic greeting in that situation?
So it's almost always an offer of assistance. So
Okay.
the way I generally greet someone at the hospital and I model the behavior is, "Good morning. This is XYZ Hospital. How can I serve you?" Or, "Would you like valet today?" Or, Did you have any trouble parking? It's asking the immediate questions that are going to solve immediate problems. Because I don't know the last time you went to a hospital, but if you go to a hospital, it's usually a chaotic experience, at least on the outside, because you got to find parking, you got to find the right entrance, you got to find where your doctor's office is, unless you go there regularly, right? Hopefully you don't have to go to a hospital regularly. But when you do go to a hospital, it's a confusing and often a frightening experience. So our job is to ask those simple questions at the beginning that can solve the problems of the moment. So inform them where they are. You're at the emergency entrance of XYZ hospital. How can I serve you? Would you like valet? Do you need assistance getting into the building?
Wow. So that really does let your customer kind of set aside the emotion and handle rationally the experience, which is a very compassionate way to navigate those 2 minutes.
Yes, and you're right. It's just 2 minutes. So if we can be exactly what they need in those 2 minutes, that's what our job is. Yeah, we've got to go park the car, but really we're there as customer service. We're there to make their transition from the street to the hospital better. You've heard of the last mile in terms of transportation, and usually that's the bikes or scooters or walking or trams or something like that. But we're the last mile for healthcare. We're the last steps to transition them from their home to their car to the medics.
And in your NPA presentation, that was so impactful to me. I remember something about in customer reviews, there is even data for you that shows that an excellent valet service helps the customer's overall impression of the hospital.
Yes.
Am I remembering that correctly? Can you help me fill in the details of that memory?
Sure. What I think you're talking about is at one of my hospitals, we collect response data. So after we valet your car, we send you a text message, hey, how did we do? Can you give us a little feedback? And over the course of the past, I think it's 24 months at this point, we get excellent feedback, and sometimes we get really constructive feedback as well, which I value sometimes even more than the positive feedback. But what we also get occasionally, at least once a month, we get a comparison of us against another major medical center in the area. And they never talk about how the doctors are. They never talk about the care that they receive. What they talk about is the experience of arriving or leaving the hospital. And, that's our ledger domain. That's our bailiwick. That's what we're about. So I don't care how the doctors are over there at that other hospital. I care about how the valets are. So that's what they give us feedback on. And we get feedback regularly that the service that we offer at my hospital is better because they get in easier, they get taken care of faster, they get their car returned faster. Sometimes we get comments that it's more expensive, but that's fine. What I've seen a number of times is we come here because it's easier to get into the hospital, and my team makes that.
We know across the industry that valet has a really high turnover rate. It's one of the jobs in our industry that, it's usually a college kid or even a high school kid. We hear a lot of that too. But the turnover rate is really high. You've talked about training and how important that is, that it's so personalized to the type of experiences that you want your valet attendants to provide to your parkers in the healthcare world. How does that play in the high turnover rate, yet the really high quality of training you want to give to your employees?
So there's a really high turnover rate in most service industries. If you look at restaurants, if you look at security, if you look at valet, there's a high turnover rate, but usually there is a core staff that remains, and they're the ones that you really have to get through. You have to set the example for them. They're the ones that have to set the example for the new ones on the team. If you would allow the expression of drinking the Kool-Aid, you've got to get them, the core team, to drink the Kool-Aid so that they can pour it for the next team members. So when I was really new in management, I was probably 22 years old, something like that. My manager said something really impactful to me. He said, if you can get the old timers, not old timers as in like age, but old timers as in like the people who have been there the longest, if you can get them on your side, they'll get everybody else on your side. And then another manager said to me at one point, if you can get the account manager on your side and keep them happy, they'll keep the team happy and they'll keep the client happy. And I've never forgotten that. So the core group, they're the ones that they have to know that they're leaders. And a lot of times in our industry and in other industries, we treat everybody the same, and we don't show the people that have given us their time and their respect. We don't show them enough respect. So I try, I'm sure that, if anyone who has ever worked for me is listening, I try to always go above and beyond for my team to make sure that they know that I respect them as much as they respect me, because that respect will then trickle down, that what I want from them will then trickle down to all of the new people. And someone who comes on will see the dedication that they have, and they will see the behaviors that they're modeling, and that will carry on. And that doesn't always work. And that's why we have turnover, because sometimes it doesn't work. But I am proud to say that at most of the hospitals that I operate, our turnover rate is far below industry standard. And it's not because we pay crazy high, because we don't. We do the same thing as everybody else. It's the same industry standard. It's the respect that not just me, but my whole company shows to our team members in the empowerment that we give them.
Thank you. For everyone listening, we're all saying thank you for managing well. I'd like to hear more about this core part of your staff. So I get this image of like 20% of your staff is your core people, your remnant, if you will. Like, what are some really practical ways that you can show them respect, make them understand their value? I'm just thinking about the managers out there who that is our target audience is management. Could you give them some advice or some pro tips or some examples of things that really work for you and your team to really bolster your core team people?
Yes. And I'll give you a really, really relevant example. At the very end of January, I think it was actually February 1st last year, but we started our training in January. We took over a new hospital. And so we just this week, math is hard, hit the 1-year anniversary for that hospital. And at our peak, we have about 65 or 70 employees at the hospital. So we had a party, and we kind of put together a list from HR, how many people have been here since day one. Of the 65 people that we started with, 35 are still there. And it's because of the empowerment. So I make myself available to my team. Everybody there knows my name. Everybody there knows how to contact me. They don't typically contact me because I also empower my managers to make decisions. Like, I'm not a micromanager at all. If I've hired you because I want you to do the job, not because I want to do the job over your shoulder. So and the same thing I feel about every employee. I've hired you because I want you to do that. And it all comes down to empowerment. Like we talked about the $2 hot dog. I empower you to make these decisions, to make this customer's day better, to give them a better experience. So I tell them that right up front. I want you to own this. This is your entrance. I'm a guest at this entrance at this point because you own it. I want you to be the mayor of this entrance. That's what I tell my employees. And they own that, they run with it, and they come to me with problems. And usually they come to me with solutions to the problems, which I absolutely love. But we show them the respect, we give them the time of day, and I show them that I'm willing to do what they need to do. Another good example is, here I am tooting my own horn, but you asked the question, so I'm going to give it to you. On Monday, one of my managers at another hospital called me. Actually, he called me Sunday night and said, hey, we just had a million call-offs. I don't know if we're going to be able to open valet tomorrow. I don't know if we're going to be able to open our traffic control tomorrow. We may not even be able to open shuttle service tomorrow. These are all things that we provide at this hospital. I said, okay, I'll be there at 7:00. And I think he went to bed because he never responded to me. But I got myself up and I got myself to that particular hospital, which is like an hour and a half away, to be there at 7:00 in the morning. I was wearing 3 pairs of pants. I was wearing 4 shirts and 2 sweaters and a jacket. And I had my winter hat on, and I had my traffic control vest. And I showed up and I said, all right, I'm here. Where do you need me? And it wasn't like, all right, I'm here to take over. I'm the captain of the ship. It was me showing up saying, you need help, and I'm here to be the switchblade for you. I can do all of these positions while you run the ship. Where do you need me? And all of my team sees that. And that's not just me. I was telling you about when we started this hospital a year ago. My office is about an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on who's driving, from this other hospital. And at one point we called for help. And we said, hey, I need a handful of people. I need some people to run valet. There's more cars than we expected. It's a really good problem to have. And, our drivers are having trouble getting around the hospital because it's a big hospital and they're not terribly familiar with the route. So I'd like to put an extra couple shuttles on the route just so we can alleviate the problems. Within 3 hours, 9 managers from my office showed up, and one of them brought 5 employees. And none of them stepped on board. Like my senior vice president was there, my CEO, my CFO, they've all shown up, and they don't show up to take control. We show up to be a participant in the job that needs to be done. And our team sees that, knows it, and they love it. And that's why people stay, because they can see that they're being supported, that they can see that they are not just cogs in the machine, that they are important members. And we like to call that out to show them that they're not just, I guess to say cogs in the machine.
And I'm sure that translates to the people that experience parking with you guys. So it's not just about what's going on within your internal team, but it's also, I am confident that everyone who parks with you guys can feel that, and they can see that camaraderie, and that probably comes through in their experience, along with being provided good customer service, but also feeling warm and feeling like genuine about what's going on.
Yes. Not only do our clients see it, I'm thinking of an example where my client was standing next to me and I was greeting a car, taking the keys from the customer, and I threw the keys to my CFO, who had literally just walked up. I hadn't even said hello there. I said, "Hey, follow these cars. I need you to move a car." And my client looked at me and he said, "Sorry, what did you just do?" And I said, I gave him the keys, and the customer was coming out. And she said to me, "You guys look like you're having way too much fun." And I said, "Yeah, that guy over there, he's actually the chief financial officer of the company. So he's going to drive your car." She said, "Well, okay, that's crazy." And so they can see it. Like it is not always joyful, but it is a joy to serve. And that, I'm sure, doesn't come out all the time, but I hope more often than not, our patients, guests, visitors, they can see that. It's palpable, and they understand that we're not there just to collect a paycheck. We're there in order to actually serve them.
Well, I think it's incredible. And I think it's almost like a breath of fresh air, because I think when we're on site, we see that the operators and the people in the field, that's what they want to do. But so often they just don't know how to do it. So Brandon, I feel like your presentation and your conversation today is just giving the people who desire to serve well and serve with joy some really practical ways to actually do that. So I appreciate you. You definitely have something to share, and we're glad you're here today.
Thank you.
So if you guys will let me, I'd like to kind of pivot. Brandon, something that we see often is that people in the parking industry, especially facility operators, they don't know how to present what they need to the people who have the resources to meet their needs. And one of the things that I really appreciated about your presentation at NPA is I could tell that you know how to put together a rational and concise presentation to explain your situation or persuade for your train of thought. So would you be willing to share with us just what kind of, in big chunks, like what is your process for making a presentation? How do you think through that and put it together and then execute a good presentation?
Well, there is a gulf between the data that you have, whether you know that you have it or not, and the information that your target audience is looking for, whether it's your supervisors or your team or a customer or industry colleagues like yourselves. Understanding how to get all of this data that I have to your ears in a way that makes sense to you and gets the message across. That's really the problem. So I typically start with the last slide first. I have to establish the message that I'm going to give to you. You know, sometimes authors, they'll write and just find the path along the way. But other authors, I'm not an author, but in this instance, like me, they'll write the last page first. This is the end. This is the mission. This is what it looks like to be the end. And then I will take that, each line of data that I'm trying to get to you, and the way I tend to do it is I tend to present each individual point of data or each data set as an individual, and then I will eventually blend them along the way to paint a picture. So I'll show you each color that I'm using, and then I will show you how they blend together. And sometimes that works in a really fluid motion, and sometimes, you have to present some information and then kind of do a full stop, and then you can't be afraid to shift gears in the middle of a presentation, because I presented all of this information and great, put that on a shelf for now. And then I'm going to present you a whole new batch of information. Great, put that on a shelf for now. And then at the very end, you can take everything off the shelf and build your Legos. The hardest part of that, I think, is understanding what data you have to make your point. Because a lot of times we as managers, as professionals, we can intuitively know what the messages we're trying to get across, and we can vamp for a while. But understanding the data that you have to make your point is the hardest. So sitting and looking at the data that like, for example, my NPA presentation, I gave you a lot of data points, and the hardest part for me was understanding which data points I wanted to show and which data points were completely irrelevant. So as a manager, I collect as much data as possible. I can tell you how many cars each valet moved per hour, per day of the week. I can tell you when I think a particular valet was sick, because I know that they normally move this or they normally move that, and they didn't. I can tell you the shuttles that I manage. I can tell you how many miles they average per day, and I can tell you which driver prefers which vehicle. That's crazy, right? Why would I need that data? But I don't need that data until I need that data. So the idea is getting a handle on your data and then processing it in a way to present it to your target audience in a way that they can hear. I can present the same data to the CEO of a hospital and the same data to my staff at the hospital, but I'm talking about two different sets of ears. So the things that are going to be important to the CEO are not going to be as important to the team that is actually doing the work. So what is the objective of my presentation, and what am I trying to get them to hear? And then how do I take that data set and tune it to their ear? And it's a long way of saying you just got to know your audience.
You have to know your data and your audience.
Yes.
Yeah. So after you do this whole big process and you deliver the presentation and you're, commuting home and you're reflecting over the whole experience, what are the markers to you that indicate that the presentation was successful?
That would depend on the audience, but questions, people asking questions to expand on what I've said, is always a big plus. I love to see people writing things down. That's huge for me, because it tells me that I've given them something that they're interested in. And if I can look back on a presentation and say, I said everything I needed to say, I believe that it will have an effect. Whether it does or not, if I've done everything I can, then I'm happy. But I think the answer to your question is expanding questions after the fact. And when people are taking notes, or they seem like, a lot of people took pictures of my NPA presentation as I was giving it. And I love that, because it means that there's something on screen that they like.
Well, it was a beautiful presentation. You should be very proud of that.
Thank you.
My favorite thing from that presentation that I did write down that day was your quote, unreasonable excellence in small moments. And I think you've spoken a lot about that today. But what a beautiful goal, like to be unreasonably excellent in 2 minutes.
Thank you. If you're going to do something, do it well. And if you're going to do it well, do it excellently.
Yeah, why not? So what's coming up for you in 2026? Are you presenting again? Where can our listeners find you this year?
I will be presenting again on a similar topic, but more on the relationship between the hospital and the parking team. I'll be presenting at IPMI in Milwaukee in June.
Exciting. I know lots of people that were at NPA also go to IPMI, so you'll probably have some definite repeat customers. And Lee and I definitely have expanding questions for you. I feel like they keep growing even after we've had the 35 minutes to chat. But we so appreciate you being here today and sharing your wisdom and knowledge with us. And we hope that everybody that's listening was able to take something where they can apply it in the business they serve every day and improve the customer experiences during their day-to-day activities. So going back to the point about security, it's not about security, but the parking business has a poor reputation, like we do. And we own that, but we can also make strides in every small moment to make it better. So being that observant parking attendant, or being that valet that notices something about someone and compliments them, or, just the little things to improve that experience will ultimately improve our industry and our reputation for sure. So thank you for being here today, Brandon. And we hope we see everybody else on the next episode of the Our Parking Industry podcast.
Thanks very much.
To quote one of the greatest business minds of our time, Charles Munger, he said, "The best thing a human can do is help another human being know more." Here on Our Parking Industry podcast, we want to provide knowledge and resources. If you heard something that sparked your curiosity in today's episode, please reach out on our socials at TPN Consulting. You can find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Don't forget to subscribe and follow. See you next time on Our Parking Industry.